welcome to the live class. Today our topic is words that you might feel uncomfortable asking people about. Bodily function words. So I have noticed that a lot of different students that I've had over the years are lacking a lot of vocabulary related to things that we feel awkward talking about, like burping and farting, etc. So today I'm going to have time to answer some questions, but I also first want to introduce some vocabulary and see if you guys have any questions about the words that I'm going to present to you. So, hello and welcome. Hi to everyone who is joining. I hope that you are having a good weekend so far. Here in Chile, I am starting my day. Yeah, so how is everyone doing today? Hello, hello. I have had a good week. I finished a book club with some students, so I feel a sense of accomplishment. And I'm excited for the weekend. Because last weekend, I went to visit a friend, which was very nice. But this weekend, I plan to go grocery shopping and kind of get my life together because I didn't really do that last weekend. Hello, how are you doing today? Welcome, welcome. Before your class, I'm going to take a leak. Okay, so we're going to start with the vocabulary. Again, you could say, I don't want to learn this, but I think it's very necessary because when you're in a situation and you're speaking in English and you want to say, I need to go to the bathroom, you don't want to accidentally say something that sounds very weird, right? So you want to have some different options for what you can say. And if you're celebrating Ramadan, happy Ramadan, everyone. This might be a random topic. Okay, so one set of vocabulary that I have when it comes to the body and bodily functions is the skin. So I'm going to read these different vocabulary terms out loud, and if you have any questions or you want to make an example, feel free to put it in the chat. So, skin, the most common usual word for a red bump that you could get on your skin. Especially when I was a teenager, I would get a lot of them. Now as an adult, I still get some, but not as many as when I was a teenager. So those are called pimples, right? And the medical word for that is acne. So you could have acne or acne-prone skin. I'm curious if any of you have experience with acne when you were a teenager or maybe now as well. You might have some good examples with some of these vocabulary words. So, types of pimples. We have whiteheads and blackheads. That's because the top of the pimple we are calling a head. Then we have a lot of phrasal verbs that we use related to the skin. So if your skin gets worse, like your acne or you have a rash or irritation, you could say that you have a flare-up. So this is related to it getting redder and burning more, a flare-up. Similarly, we have a breakout. So you could have a breakout, and I understand that you get a lot of pimples at one time. Or you could say that you are breaking out. A lot of acne medication will say that it fights breakouts or it will help you with breakouts. So just remember when we're using something like a phrasal verb, it's the two words separated. Flare up, break out, clear up. And then when we're using it as a noun, it's all together. So a flare up, a breakout. Okay, then we have maybe if you had acne before and it's not there anymore, but you see some scars or little marks, those could be called pock marks or scarring. To break out in a rash. Yes, exactly. So you could, if you just say, I broke out, it sounds like you're talking about pimples or acne. But if you say, I broke out in a rash, it could be something more like an allergy or skin irritation. So remember to include the word in there. I broke out in a rash. A cyst is below the skin. I'm sure if any of you are medical professionals, you could give a better explanation, but it's below the skin. So it's not a white head or black head that you can pop and it will come out. It is below the skin and usually pretty painful. Some people have cystic acne, which means that they are prone to developing pimples under their skin. Okay, then we have oily and greasy skin. The more medical word that you'll see is oily. So if you buy a skin, like a face soap, it might say, this is for oily skin. The negative word here is greasy skin. So you could say, oh my God, I'm so upset. My skin looks so greasy in this photo. That would be a more negative sounding word. And oily is just kind of the opposite of having dry skin. The action that you do when you squeeze a pimple and try to release the liquid inside is to pop a pimple. And the last one, a student asked me this week, what is the liquid inside the pimple called? That is called pus. Same thing if you have a wound and it is infected and it has some sort of like whitish, yellowish liquid, that liquid is called pus. Okay, so I don't know if anyone has any example or questions about any of these skin-related words. I'll give some examples myself. Yeah, growing up, I had greasy skin, and this resulted in me breaking out. When I had a breakout, I tried not to pop my pimples, because I think that would make my skin flare up more. Yeah, those are some examples that I have with these words. I'm curious if everyone knew this vocabulary also. Maybe some of this is kind of specific. But if you watch any skincare influencers or people who talk about products for the skin, you'll probably see some of these words. I didn't understand what cyst means. Cyst is the type of, it's like a pimple, but it's underneath the skin. So it's not the red one on the surface of the skin. It's deep. So you feel a painful bump, but it's not possible to pop. So you might have a cyst. Yeah, some people need to actually get their cyst removed by a medical professional because it's like deep inside of your skin. That is a cyst. So it's similar to a pimple, but far below the surface of the skin and usually very painful. Yeah, of course. I think it's helpful in case any of you are in an English-speaking country and you start to have a breakout. Imagine you have a pimple, a breakout, and you go to the store and you need some help finding a product that will work for you. Maybe you could say, I'm getting a lot of blackheads on my nose. Do you have some soap for that? Or you might want some of this vocabulary to describe a specific condition. Okay, I'm going to bring us to the next one. So this is skin. This one is gas, and I put the little capybara farting here. So, of course, we have gas Yeah, someone said, and sometimes cyst is needed to get a treatment from a medical professional support. Yes, definitely. A cyst is not something that you should try to remove yourself. I think you need to either not do anything, because I've heard some doctors say a cyst that's small might just eventually go away, but it's definitely something you might need medical attention for if it's like a very painful cyst. Okay, so gas. The most normal way to say that you release gas out of your butt is to fart. That is the most common word. The most common word. You could say, "Did you fart? Did someone fart? Sorry, I farted. Ooh, I need to fart. I'm going to go outside." In the US, we say it like farted. When you're saying it in the present tense, it's fart with the T. But then when you're saying it in the past, it's like farted in US English because we kind of use the flap T there. It is both the verb and the noun. So he farted, or the fart smelled bad, for example. So you could use it like a noun and a verb. A nice way to say fart, a euphemism, if you will, is to pass gas. So that is like a nice way to say to fart. It sounds more polite. He passed gas. One that's also a euphemism, but more childish, is to cut the cheese. So if you say, he cut the cheese, and this was a joke. When I was a child, if someone said, like, oh, I'm going to go cut the cheese in a literal way, all of the children were laughing because they were like, cut the cheese! Ha 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 ha! Yeah, so that's kind of a more childish one, but I thought it was funny, so I included it. Another common phrase we say about farts is silent but deadly. So that refers to if someone farts and it doesn't make a noise, it could smell really bad. The more medical word about farting is flatulence, and it's pronounced like flatulence, flatulence. The last one here, I think, is especially common in British English, but referring to fart as wind. I have wind. I've also heard I passed wind, so that's a nicer way to say fart as well. The second picture I have is a baby, and when the gas comes out of the mouth instead of out of the rear, out of the backside, that is called a burp. And burp doesn't really have that many possible ways to say it that are usual. I think burp is, in general, the most common one. To burp, if I burp, I go bleh and release air from my mouth, right? But if I burp a baby, then I hit the baby on the back and the baby burps. So this is both a transitive and intransitive verb. I burp means that I'm the one releasing the gas, but if I burp a baby or I burp another person, that person is releasing the gas. So this is a very common word to use. If you are a mother, you could say, I need to burp my baby. I need to pat my baby on the back so my baby releases its gas. Yeah, I agree. I think silent but deadly is the best one. Exactly. Silent but deadly. Yeah, I saw this video about types of farts, and they were saying like that is the type that has more like internal gas, and that's why it smells so bad instead of just air that you swallow. Because some burps and farts just come from air that you swallow because we're always swallowing air, so they don't really smell as bad. But other things are like released from the gases of our intestines, and that's why they are silent but deadly. Okay, then we have to belch. That's just a very informal way to say to burp. Um, yeah, so that is another way to say to burp. I'm curious, does anyone here have a specific rule when it comes to burping and farting? Is it okay to burp or fart in front of other people? Does it depend on the context? Do you always need to go to the bathroom if you have to burp and fart? In your culture, is there a specific rule about burping and farting? Let us know. I would say, in terms of burping, I think it's not as offensive. Just don't burp in someone's face and like cover your mouth, maybe. But like farting is a little bit maybe something you want to not do next to another person, you know? If you can control it. I know sometimes you can't control it. Nature calls. Hello, how are you doing, everyone? Yeah, belch is a very informal word. So if you say he belched, that is like he burped, maybe kind of loudly. Hello. Okay, so that is gas. Now that we know how to talk about gas, the most normal way to talk about gas is I farted, I burped. But you have a lot of euphemisms with farting because I think farting is a little bit more taboo because of the smell, you know? It's not okay and it's not normal to say to someone, I'm going to pass gas outside. I think when it's possible to not say that you're farting, it's okay. But obviously, if you're with a close friend or family, you can say, I have to go pass gas. I always feel embarrassed when I happen to fart in a crowded room. True. I always have that fear. It hasn't happened to me yet, but I always have that fear in yoga class because we're all like stretching and moving our bodies and there's nowhere to go. So you're in like a silent room of people and yeah, it hasn't happened to me yet, but that's a fear of mine that I would fart loudly in the middle of a yoga class. In Brazil, it's impolite to fart or burp, but of course it happens sometimes. True. Yeah, that's true. I think it's not, yeah, it's something very natural. Like you don't want to burp or fart in someone's face, but to an extent, you can't control that. Um, burping, yeah, discreetly burping is not so impolite anymore in France. And I would say impolite with impolite, like this, is not so impolite. Just joining what's going on. Yeah, for context, we're talking about burping and farting. So to cut the cheese is a euphemism. It's a nice way to say fart, but it's a euphemism used more by children. So it's kind of like an immature way to say fart. So if you're with a group of children from the US and you say, I'm going to cut the cheese, even if you're talking in a literal way, like you're making, I don't know, you're making sandwiches and you literally are cutting a slice of cheese. If you say, I'm cutting the cheese, a bunch of kids might be like, ha ha ha, he's cutting the cheese, he's farting. So it's a childish euphemism for farting. All of the ones at the top are related to farting, but to pass gas is a more polite adult euphemism, and then to cut the cheese is a more childish euphemism. Okay, so that's farting and burping. I have this one next. Okay, so this is one that I think is really actually important to talk about because a lot of the time my students will say something like, I needed to pee pee or poo poo. And that, I think in different languages, sometimes saying pee pee or poo poo sounds casual and natural, but specifically in English, that is like what children say. So adults tend to say, I peed or I pooped. These are both regular verbs. So in the past, we just add the ed. I peed, I pooped. Um, peed ends with the D sound, pooped with the T sound. But yeah, I would just say it once instead of pee-peed or poo-pooed. Only if you're talking to like a baby, you could repeat the word. Yeah, and so I'm curious from everyone if this is your first time ever practicing this vocabulary in an English class. Okay, so I peed, I pooped. That is like neutral, common, normal way to say pee and poop. If you want the medical way to say it, it is to urinate, would be to pee, to urinate, but that would never be used in a casual conversation, to urinate and to defecate. That would only ever be used in like a court document or a medical situation, like a very formal situation. It would not be, you would never say to someone, I have to urinate. That would not be like a natural thing to say. Okay, I'm curious if this is the case in anyone else's country or language. In the US, when I was in Canada, I said I'm gonna pee, and my friends corrected me with I'm gonna piss. Really, I wouldn't say that. For me personally, piss sounds really like graphic and intense. I'm gonna piss. Like, I wouldn't say piss. Maybe it's cultural. Maybe in Canada they say that. In the US, that sounds like, I don't know, like it sounds, if anyone is from Chile, it's almost like of hacer pee, it would be like mear. I don't like, it sounds really like kind of like filthy. I don't know. But that's in my experience coming from the US. Like to piss. I mean, you could casually say I pissed myself laughing or something like that. And that, but like I would never use that with like my grandma or my parents or something. Like that would be something just with a friend in a really casual way. Take a piss. I don't know. For me personally in the US, piss sounds very intense. Take a piss. Yeah, maybe with close friends, but I still think if I was talking to my friends and I said, yeah, I'm gonna go take a piss, they would be like, okay. But yeah, maybe depends on the country. I don't know if there are any other Canadians here. Maybe they have a different word that's more common for them. But for me, like the most neutral would be to pee. Here, I gotta go is a good one. I gotta go. Or I have to use the bathroom as well. So I have to pee, I have to go, I have to use the bathroom. More casual would be like take a leak or piss also. Those would be more casual. Um, People also say a lot number one and number two in the sense that, okay, imagine that I am at a friend's house and I say, I have to go use the bathroom. And the friend says, okay, well, is it number one or number two? Because my downstairs toilet doesn't flush very well. So if it's number two, you should use the upstairs toilet, for example. So number one and number two is useful when you are talking to someone and you have to use the bathroom and they might ask you, do you have to pee or poop? So number one is pee and number two is poop. So someone might ask you if you need to use the bathroom. Okay, is it a number one or a number two? No, I have to go number two. I have to go number one. I have to pee. I have to go number two. I have to poop. But of course, that would only be if you're kind of, I don't know, maybe for some reason you need to specify whether you are peeing or pooping. Spend a penny is old-fashioned British English. That's funny. In Brazil, males and females express it in different ways. Oh, interesting. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, maybe men say that, I'm gonna go piss. I just feel like if I said that to my friends, they would be like, whoa. Okay, really common also. Imagine you're on a road trip with a group of friends. And you're like, "Can we pull over at the next rest stop? I really gotta go. I gotta go." And maybe they want it to be specified because they want to know the wait time. True. Yeah, exactly. Or like, "Should I go in the bathroom after you? Was it a number one or a number two?" If it's a number two, I'm going to wait before I go in and get my towel. So this is a good phrase if you're like really needing to use the bathroom. "Ooh, I gotta go. I have to go to the bathroom," or just for short, "I have to go." If it's understood that you're talking about the bathroom. So you're in the car. "Ooh, I drank a lot of water and now I gotta go. Now I gotta go." All right. Then we have to hold it. This is a good one. So we're in the car and you're like, "I really gotta go." And I'm like, "Is it a number one or a number two?" You're like, "It's a number one." Okay, can you hold it? Like, are you able to hold your pee until we arrive at the next stop? And if you're like, I can't hold it anymore, I am going to wet myself. I'm going to wet my pants. Like, I'm going to pee in my pants. Voy al fondo a la derecha. Another kind of more euphemistic way to say this is to do your business. I have to do my business. I have to do my business. Okay, more informal is I have to take a leak. I have to take a dump, which is to poop. So a leak, a number one, a pee, a dump, a number two, a poop. To urinate would never be common in informal conversation. You could say that in like I don't know, if you're at a doctor's appointment, they might say, "Are you having trouble urinating?" But with a friend or family member, you would never say urinate. Like, you're not going to hear that. If you're watching movies in English, you're probably never going to hear urinate said in a conversation between characters, only in something like Grey's Anatomy, where it's a medical situation. To wet the bed is like when you pee and it gets your bed wet, or to wet yourself. So this is also important because imagine I go outside and it rains on me, and then I want to say I got wet. Sometimes someone might say, "Oh, I wet myself." No. If you say that, it sounds like you're saying that you peed on yourself. So remember that if water goes onto your body, you would say, "I got wet." But then if you pee, it would be, "I wet myself." A more elegant phrase, I would say, use the restroom. Use the restroom is the most kind of like elegant, because the thing is, the more we remove ourselves from the action of peeing and pooping, the more polite and elegant it sounds. So instead of talking about like, "Oh, I'm gonna pee or poop," if I say I'm gonna use the restroom and just keep it really vague, that would be the most elegant thing to say. You could also say I have to do my business, but I feel like that's more like a euphemism for it. I think that I have to use the restroom would be more elegant than that. To go potty. Yes, definitely. Kids, like children, say, "I need to go potty. I need to go potty." British people also say, "I need to use the loo." So instead of the restroom, they might say that they need to use the loo, or hit the loo, or hit the bathroom. My dad says I need to hit the little boy's room, which sounds kind of weird, actually. I think that he uses it as a joke to talk about himself being a little boy. I kind of regret saying that out loud because I feel like people might misinterpret that. Never mind. Um, Dropping the kids off at the pool. Okay. I need to do something that nobody can do for me. That's funny. Yeah, well, the last one here is nature calls. This is when you have to go. When you gotta go, you gotta go. And nature calls. There's nothing you can do to control it. Nature is calling you. Also, hello to everyone that's joining. We are talking about common ways to talk about using the bathroom. The most kind of generic, general way is I have to pee and poop. Um, if you want to be more elegant, you can say I have to go, I have to use the restroom. If you want to talk about holding it so that you are not going, you say I can hold it or I can't hold it. Very informal. I need to take a leak or take a dump. If you pee on yourself, you wet yourself. If it's about an old person that could wet themselves involuntarily, how do you say pañal for babies and adults? We call that a diaper. A diaper. For both babies and adults. The one for adults could also be called an adult diaper. An adult diaper. If it's an old person that can't hold it, they might have leakage. They might have leakage. That is like when water filtrates. In other contexts as well, like if your house has a hole in the roof and it rains and then the water comes into your house, that's a leak. And so also you have leakage. I think that would be what it's the more common way, but let me see if there's another way that we could say that. I have a friend who works as a pelvic floor physical therapist. I should ask him. Let me see. Involuntary urination. Like the medical term would be urinary incontinence. Urinary incontinence. But in a casual way, you could say, for example, bladder leak, lack of bladder control. Okay, this is related to, I would say a bladder leak or a lack of bladder control. This is related to farting. Let one rip is when you let yourself fart. He let one rip. He let himself fart. Okay, the last topic that I had here that we could do is sweat. So sweat is when you are outside and it's really hot outside and you start to leak water from your body. That is sweat, to perspire. So here I have ones that are like just sweating a lot. And the first one is to sweat like a pig. That just means that you are sweating a lot. To sweat bullets, that also means you're sweating a lot. And that could be in the context, like if you're very nervous about something, you could sweat bullets. So sweating like a pig, I would use more just like it's really hot outside or I was exercising. But to sweat bullets could also refer to being really nervous about something, so you start to sweat. We also have this word to sweat profusely. To sweat profusely means to sweat a lot without stopping. The word profusely you could see with sweat profusely, sweating a lot. You can also see it with apologize profusely. If someone is like, sorry, I'm so sorry, they are apologizing profusely. They are continuing to apologize over and over. Suggestions for the next class. Insults and bad words. Okay. That is a good topic, I think. Um, Especially, I mean, just so that if you're in a situation and someone is insulting you, you want to be able to know what they're saying. Sweating like no tomorrow. Yes, exactly. That could be like, I'm sweating so much in an extreme amount. Dripping with sweat also means that you're sweating a lot. If you are soaked or drenched, it means that you are so sweaty that your clothes are wet with sweat. And remember, the word sweat, a lot of people mispronounce this word and say sweet, but it rhymes with the word wet. Wet, sweat. So it sounds like the word wet, sweat. The word clammy is very specific. This is sweaty but cold at the same time. So if your hands are sweaty, but they're also cold, they are clammy. It's used a lot to talk about someone's hands. If you hold someone's hand, but they're sweaty and cold at the same time, you could say, oh, his hands are really clammy. Or if you have a fever, you might be clammy. You're kind of like, well, I guess a fever would be a hot temperature. But if you're very sick and you feel kind of cold but also sweaty at the same time, you would be clammy. Do I think it's offensive to use these words with another person? I think everything in life depends on context, right? So if you are talking to, someone in a very formal context and you're like, oh, I'm sweating like a pig. I've also heard really offensive ones that I feel like I should not repeat on here, but if you guys DM me later, I can send it to you. Um, yeah, I think in some situations you should be careful who you talk to about your bodily functions in general. But I also think that, if you're talking to your friends and you're saying like, oh yeah, I was outside and it was so hot that I started just sweating profusely and now I'm soaked. I don't think that there is anything where you should never, I mean, there are some words that you should never say. But in terms of this, I think it's more a matter of, is it a situation where it's appropriate to talk about your bodily functions? In some situations, that's not going to be the case. And then also, are you saying something that's really intense for the situation? Like, instead of, oh, I'm going to go to the restroom, to say, like, I'm going to go take a dump or something. But again, you might see, like, if you're telling a friend a story, you could also be like, yeah, oh my God, this man on the train just took a dump right in front of me. So you might want the informal tone in some situations. What would be the right way to tell someone that he or she is a bit smelly? Honestly, I was listening to a podcast recently where they were talking about whether or not it's socially acceptable to tell a friend that they smell bad, and it was inconclusive. I feel like it's really hard to tell someone. Maybe like I would go the route of, maybe if I had a deodorant that I liked, to say, hey, like, have you tried this deodorant before? Um, maybe like, you are smelling a little, I guess it depends on how close you are with the friend. You could say, it smells a little funky in here. Are you wearing deodorant? I don't know. I guess it depends if you're the type of person to confront someone for smelling bad. I'm curious if anyone else has a thought about this. Um, yeah, it smells a little funky in here. Are you wearing deodorant? Or often, oh my God, this is like a mind trick. You could blame yourself. You could be like, it smells kind of funny. Is that me? Oh, I think it might be you. I think that could work also. Yeah. Tricky situation though. Do you want to take a shower? Pit stains is when your armpit, so pits are armpits. So you could say his pits stink, and that's an informal way to say that his armpits have odor. So you could say it reeks in here. It's real stinky. Body odor, some people say BO. Someone mentioned here when someone's breath stinks. That, what could we say when someone's breath stinks? Okay, this is an article. What's the funniest way to tell someone that they have bad breath? Someone said, hand them a car air freshener. When they look at you, just say, maybe eat it, might help. Oh my God. I think your breath just whispered, we need a mint. I remember this one person said, hey, I'm bored. Let's brush our teeth together. Your breath makes me look forward to your farts. Did you fart from your mouth by any chance? Want a mint? Your word hole and asshole switched locations with each other. Nothing like coping and smelling next to your face when you're on the bus. I really could use a shower now. Don't you feel the same? That's a good one. Yeah, when you're like stuck next to someone on the bus, that's always hard. Oh my God, wait. I'm not sure if you're aware, but your breath smells a bit off. I just wanted to watch out for you. Sorry to mention this, but I wanted to let you know your breath is a little strong right now. If the situation was reversed, I would want someone to tell me, so I thought I'd let you know you could use a breath mint right now. I noticed your breath odor. I actually had that issue too. Yeah. The formal medical term for that is halitosis. There was a pun that I learned once that was like about Gandhi, and it said that he is a mystic that would travel around, and he would withstand anything, walking barefoot. He didn't have a toothbrush. He was able to withstand all of these difficulties. So you could call him what was it? A super calloused, fragile mystic hexed by halitosis instead of supercalifragilistic hexed by expialidocious. You have something stuck in your teeth and it stinks. Let's drink mouthwash. You guys are good. I would feel I feel like if I were in your presence with bad breath, you would let me know immediately. How to use chopped when it means unattractive, uncool. That is very modern and very young. Um, yeah, I would say like she's chopped is just like she's ugly and unattractive, or he looks chopped. I would use it just as an adjective. It is very young person slang, but it's getting more and more common on the internet. So to say that someone is chopped, it's like the opposite of he mogs, he's chopped. Yeah. Does anyone have any other questions about this topic or anything else that we talked about today? You could say someone has rotten breath. Someone could smell fishy, stink to high heaven. Oh, there are a lot of these that I have never used before, but I tried to share with you guys the most common things that you can say when it comes to bodily functions in English. So hopefully this was helpful for you. I would say yeah, in terms of bathroom, just I gotta go. Or if you wanted to say specifically pee, poop, number one, number two, to fart is probably the most normal thing to say, to burp, to sweat, etc. So now we're ready. If you have any sort of personal hygiene emergency, or you maybe for your acne, your pimples, you need to um get some acne medication. You can say, I have blackheads. How to use bamboozle. To bamboozle means to deceive, trick, or confuse someone, often using elaborate methods or false information. So it's not just being surprised, it's like you were tricked. Um, for example, a salesman tricking a customer into buying unnecessary products, a magician fooling an audience with a disappearing act, or being bamboozled by complicated jargon into revealing personal information. That's interesting because I feel like I've seen bamboozle used beyond this just to be surprised or confused, but I guess it has this specific meaning that it should be something that tricked you. So you were scammed or you were tricked. Yeah, I was bamboozled, like being scammed or tricked. I was bamboozled. Um, and you could use it with, for example, the tricky salesman bamboozled the elderly couple into buying a broken appliance. We use a lot with to trick and to bamboozle the preposition into. So I was tricked into doing something, or I was talked into doing something. I was bamboozled into doing something. If someone talks you into doing something, they talk to you to convince you to do something that maybe you wouldn't have done if they hadn't talked to you. So to talk someone into something, bamboozle someone into something, or to trick someone into something. It could be like to rip someone off. That would be, it's like in the same category, but different. So if I bamboozle you, it's kind of like I confuse you to trick you. But if I rip you off, it's I charge you more money than something was worth. So technically, if I bamboozle you into buying a really expensive TV, but I only paid $20 for it, I'm also ripping you off. So it's like a type of being bamboozled, just paying more than you should for something. But you could apply the word bamboozled to other situations that are not related to money as well. Yeah, she was bamboozled into giving her password to the scammer. So you could also use bamboozle to talk about giving personal information, which is very common now. Everyone should be careful because something like that happened to my mom, where if someone calls you and they act like they're from the bank or anything like that, it's really easy to get bamboozled into doing something. And I think nowadays they do not ask you for your card number. Like whenever my bank actually calls me, they just ask for the last 4 digits of my social security number, but they never ask for my credit card number. If they ask that, it's very likely you are being bamboozled. How to use out of pocket. Okay, this is like maybe in addition to the insults class, I should do informal English class. If something is out of pocket, it is in Spanish desubicado. So it's like something that is not really your place to say or do. So for example, if I tell you something like I'm your coworker and I say something like, you're a really bad worker. I don't know why they hired you. And it's not really my place because I am your coworker and not your boss, not in charge of you. And it's very rude and crossing a boundary to say that. You could say that was out of pocket. Like your comment to me was out of pocket. Yeah, so it's behavior that is widely inappropriate, disrespectful, or out of line, often surprising others with its audacity. It's like the audacity of this person. That was really out of pocket. Did you hear what she said? That was totally out of pocket. Asking for a raise on your first day is way out of pocket. It's like, yeah, out of touch. You're not reading the room, unwarranted, out of line. That's how to think about out of pocket. Totally out of place, yes. But again, this is a more like younger way to speak that is now getting more popular online. So I would say that out of pocket, and what was the other one? Chopped. Both of those are going to be like younger generations. She throws me a curveball. Yeah, that's like if someone does something that's very shocking or surprising to you. That's a baseball idiom. We have a lot of baseball idioms in English, like it was out of left field. It was a curveball. We need to touch base. A lot of these are baseball related. I still don't get the 6-7 with the hands moving. That is something where I feel like 6-7 doesn't inherently have much meaning itself. It's something that got just really popular to say, and that became the meme. So it's not like from what I've seen, the origin is that there was a basketball player that's 6'7", and someone made a TikTok of this guy shooting baskets, and in the back there's a rap song that has a line that's like, I'm in the 6'7", or like that uses the numbers 6'7". And so then it became popular for a lot of young people to use this audio and to be like 6'7". um and it got popularized with like young basketball players, and then it just became something where if someone says the word 6 or 7, people would try to include it in the conversation. Honestly though, it's kind of wholesome because it doesn't have like a negative meaning or anything. I think it's just kids repeating the same joke over and over to like be part of a joke. Like you in person wouldn't use them. I use out of pocket. I personally would use out of pocket more than chopped. Maybe I would use it as a joke, chopped. But I definitely would use out of pocket. Yeah. But I'm saying like there might be some people here that are of an older generation that might feel like that's a little too young for them. But yeah, if you're like millennial or younger, I think you might say out of that something's out of pocket. Those phrases originated in the African American community, and that very commonly happens where there's a slang that starts with African American or Black English speakers and then gets popular online and then spreads to more people, especially younger people. And so both of those are examples of that, where they start to catch on more and more online and get more common with people of all demographics. We need to touch bases, like we need to check to see if we're on the same page. Like if I'm working with you on a project and I need to have a check-in or I need to have a meeting with you to see, okay, what is the status? That is, we need to touch base. We need to see what's the status. All right. I am going to get on with my day because I have to go shopping for some things for my house. And I'm planning, I think probably I will go live again next week at the same time. But if you are from the United States, remember your time is going forward an hour. And so if you saw me today at, I don't know, like 9, then the next time you see me, it will be at 10. So if you are from the United States, you're going to have a different time next week. I will be live at 11 a.m. Chile time. So you can compare what is GMT -3 with your time zone. All right. Take care. Bye, everyone. Have a good rest of your day. I'll post this on YouTube and Spotify also. So if you guys want to watch it after and you want to watch it slower or see the words at the same time, follow me on YouTube and Spotify because I always post my videos there so that you can see them in a more comfortable way afterwards. All right. Take care, everyone. Bye bye.